My name is Tim Shea. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Latticework Insights. We're a data science and integration agency. We're data scientists that speak advertising. We speak advertising across the marketing spectrum. 2019, this is the right mix of skills to have under one roof. I've been in advertising for 20 years as an engineer. People in 1999 were saying that they were data-driven, digitally first. We chuckled then, and you walk into a lot of these buildings nowadays and you say, where are all the data people? And there's like crickets chirping. And so there's this massive problem where I think everyone knows that now is the time that they must be truly data-driven, but we're just not seeing it. Conversely, I'm a programmer, data scientist by trade. The reality for a lot of data scientists is that they have not invested in the vocabulary or the finesse to be invited to some of those meetings. A smart kid out of Stanford University with a degree in applied mathematics, and throw him into Wieden+Kennedy, and it's an ugly situation. So we think now is a great time to have that mix, the sort of left brain and right brain mix of skills, people that understand data and tech really, really well, as well as all the complexity in marketing and advertising. Even before GDPR and CCPA hit, the ad industry was in kind of rough shape. We used to joke about those LoomEscape reports every year of all of the marketing tech companies or the ad agency holding companies and all their operating codes, and we'd print them out or put them up on screen, and the joke would be like, hey, can everyone read all the logos on screen? And the answer is no, because there's too many logos on screen. While entertaining, I think the reality is even as a startup or as a big enterprise like a Warner Media, you need 10, 20, 50 of those different marketing tech companies in-house. The iSpot TV folks really, really well. If iSpot TV goes in and sells a new license, they can't then cancel their subscription to Salesforce or LiveRamp or Nielsen. There's a whole variety of other data platforms, Facebook and Google, Trade Desk and so forth, that they can't just abandon because there's a new platform in-house. So yeah, there's certainly a new skill set that's needed to be able to stitch all those platforms together, to do that integration work, to build reports and analytics that can do cross-platform storytelling, and then to have domain expertise to translate those insights into something that's actionable or meaningful in media. Certainly, addressability is like the big one. I think everyone would probably give that same answer. The snag that we see in this whole conversation about addressable television and OTT is that it's a very, very small piece of the puzzle. We'll walk into an ad agency and we'll say, who here speaks Nielsen? Or who here speaks econometric modeling? Or who can tell a story about offline advertising and offline sales? The answer is there's a lot of 64-and-a-half-year-olds that are oftentimes locked in a broom closet, and those people are graduating, taking a whole set of skills with them, and how to do that sort of like non-digital measurement. No offense to 25-year-olds, right? We employ a lot of really smart 25-year-olds in our company who have been raised on digital and raised on sort of digital first, social first kind of mentality. There's a big chunk of the country that is watching Judge Judy and Bones and Monday Night Football on terrestrial cable, and then walking to a grocery store and buying soap and batteries, and being able to tell that offline to offline story is super well needed. So we think that OTT provides a small piece of the puzzle in terms of being able to say, this individual household watched this ad, and then they went to this website and bought this sweatshirt. That's a pretty big sea change for the way analytics is done for video and TV, but it's just a tiny sliver of the whole piece of the puzzle. To call it a media mix problem is fair and correct. To put it in layperson terms, the median household income in the United States is $50,000. So half of the country is not thinking about which streaming services to mix together to replace their digital TV subscription. They're not thinking about I'm going to get a little bit of Netflix and a little bit of Apple Plus and a little bit of I'm going to see how the Warner Media merger goes and see what sort of offering they have. Maybe the ad load will be a little bit different. I think the reality is those folks don't mind interruptive advertising. They don't have a lot of additional income to spend on a whole variety of other services. to pay for newspapers and online subscriptions and so forth. And so a lot of those older mediums for communicating with customers are there to stay. That is the aggregate picture for everything in the United States, is you're seeing a lot of people in New York, LA, San Francisco, Miami, Chicago that behave one way, and a lot of people in Montana, Wisconsin, Alabama that behave a whole other set of ways. This is a big set of challenges for brands, both in terms of messaging, how do we message to these different consumers that have radically different, let's say, political views on things, but also different ways of consuming content and making decisions. It's probably a good question for Casper, Warby Parker, and so forth. I think they've got a great advantage over traditional brands, and that's because they have a direct relationship with consumers, as opposed to, say, Coca-Cola, who is selling to grocery stores, who then sells to consumers. The sort of focus on traditional branding for traditional brands is real. They need to get into your subconscious and hope that that moves the needle in terms of your behavior in store. Whereas direct-to-consumer folks can rely on PPC campaigns and make sure they have a really good cost per acquisition, and they can measure all that stuff. Certainly we're moving away from that model of having a long extended pageantry to pre-sell a lot of inventory on traditional television. And then it definitely makes it a lot easier for folks like Trade Desk or Google to get into the TV, which is a term kind of used very loosely nowadays. What is TV? For them to move into that TV space and make things very measurable. They don't have to go through this large process and rent out, the NBC offices in New York City. They can just make a really good case and have a good rate card for folks to swipe their credit card and get all the reach, frequency tools that they would expect from any other medium, and really measure the effect of their marketing spend. You're probably correct about the walls. I think when we think about this marketing tech 5,000 poster on your wall, there's not going to be 5,000 of those in 2 years. I think GDPR is going to do a good job of limiting that scope. If there's a pullback in the economy, there's going to be a big pullback in the number of logos on that poster. So I think the consequence of that is probably not going to be a lot more interoperability. I think you're going to see those walled gardens get even taller, where you're going to need smart folks to understand what we did a little bit of buy on Hulu. We did some stuff on Advanced TV with Google. We did some PPC stuff on Facebook. And now we got to figure out how to stitch together what is the value of each one of those impressions. It's not going to get easier in the short run. It's just going to get harder to quantify what's happening in walled garden A versus walled garden B. Yeah, I think you can make a pretty good argument that the Newfronts and the Upfronts will become a lot more just plain old networking events, like going to an IAB conference, and a lot of the actual transactions will take place of companies swiping their credit cards, putting in their criterias and budgets, and doing a lot of that stuff, operationally. Internally, we talk a lot about having folks, or they have a great hybrid set of skills. People that need to be very deep in the weeds in ad tech and media and creative, and also understand the larger picture. In fact, when we bring people onto our team, we give them a left brain test and a right brain test to make sure that they can bridge the gap between those two things. We invest very heavily in a variety of platforms. We are very skilled in doing reporting on things like Tableau, doing analysis on big data on tools like Snowflake SQL, doing integration with tools like Fivetran, or doing predictive analytics with things like IBM Watson. In the next few years, there's not going to be one platform that sweeps through the industry and solves all of these problems. It's going to have to be a lot of smart human beings, a lot of consultants that come in and have to stitch together a lot of this loose wiring that's being produced by all these random market forces that are out there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks very much, Peter.